In this episode of INI9, we have Sadanand Dhume in Washington, and Sadanand and I are going to talk about what has been known as Memogate, the whole episode of Mansoor Ijaz and his famous op-ed in the Financial Times, which set off a chain of events which resulted in the replacement of the Pakistani ambassador to United States and probably much more than that. So Sadanand, you've been there from your perch in Washington. What do you make of this thing? What actually happened?
I don't think we're going to know what actually happened for a while until someone writes a book and we get the sort of true scoop. But in the meantime, I think we should sort of, let's go with the working assumption of what most people believe happened. And that is that there was some kind of trial balloon, some kind of effort to reach out to elements of the US government in the fraught time after the Abbottabad raid and get US intervention in Pakistan in return for a completely revamped Pakistani approach towards national security issues, both in Afghanistan and India. And that seems to be the gist of what went down in the infamous memo of Memogate.
Right. But then the perpetrators would be who? The folks in the Pakistani embassy in Washington or some unknown third parties?
Depends on who you believe. If you believe that the BlackBerry Messenger transcripts that were released are authentic, then it appears to be a conversation between Mansoor Ijaz and Pakistan's ambassador Hussain Haqqani. If, on the other hand, those messenger transcripts are doctored, you can't rule it out, then the whole thing is sort of, it just depends on what you believe. It's either a conspiracy or it's a conspiracy within a conspiracy.
Right. That's right. What I wrote this morning was, there are two sort of explanations to this, mutually connected in one way, as you explained it, conspiracy within a conspiracy. One would be, a bunch of political entrepreneurs in Pakistan realize that you can kick the military when they are down, and May is a good time for you to get the United States to intervene and, get the military out of the room. And the second is that, this was essentially a sting operation where, the ISI or somebody wanted to frame Haqqani as a way to put pressure on Zardari and return and become the favorites of the nation. Now, both these things could have happened together. But what strikes me is that the way this has been seen as treason, as an act of treason, as an act of betrayal, rather than an attempt by the civilian setup or a bunch of political entrepreneurs who are civilians to sort of restore a semblance, or not restore is a bad word, to acquire a semblance of civilian democracy in Pakistan. What do you make of this?
Well, a couple of parts there, right? Let's unpack that. The first part is I think that it could have started out as one thing, a sort of attempt by the civilian, by civilian players to change the balance of power between the civilians and military in Pakistan, and ended up somewhere else. Nobody has really answered the question why Mansoor Ijaz suddenly went from being alleged co-conspirator to chief whistleblower.
Right.
What happened? And that's a mysterious and murky sort of part of this whole thing. The second question really comes down to how Pakistani, public opinion has been conditioned over the years. I mean, in the end, are Pakistani elites more comfortable with so-called rogue civilians or rogue generals? And I think the disheartening aspect of this whole thing is that there seems to be a large body of public opinion in Pakistan which is much more comfortable with the activities of the ISI, which frankly is beyond the pale for much of the international community, but get completely outraged at the thought that somebody was possibly going behind the back of the ISI and the military, to even if their goals were obviously some positive and worthy of being lauded.
Exactly, because the military has gone to foreign and sought foreign support as well. The civilians, like Nawaz Sharif, went to the United States on 4th of July to get the military's cojones out of wherever they were. So it's not like, foreign intervention into political affairs in Pakistan is something new which happened in May. It's been happening for years. And just to see such an act as an act of sovereignty, that to me is more worrying than whatever else it might be, because people have seen the Asif Zardari's judo in appointing Sharif Rahman as something to be something to cheer about. I think it is in a small way, but in a longer term, I'm worried about this because there is palpable support for a military establishment's narrative.
I think it's more than that. I think that the support for the military narrative is almost subconscious, right? It's almost as though, the thing there's nothing new about turning to America, right? There's the old adage that there are three power centers in Pakistan, Allah, Army, and America.
Right.
So this is nothing new. What's new is the civilians apparently having the temerity to go behind the army's back. And that's sort of the fact that this is sort of, that the military was able to drum up this kind of vast public support for their position, and the support for the alternative position, which is that the memo was pursuing something essentially good, was so muted and so limited, is a kind of sobering reality check on the state of public opinion in Pakistan right now.
So now let's move on to the. What do you think is what does this mean for the future of U.S.-Pakistan relations? I mean, Pakistan needs the United States now more than ever because I think they have not more than 3 to 6 months before they run out of money, right? So money might be the first trigger which makes them need the United States more than anything else. So what's going to happen?
I think we're in the midst of a reset. I think as the U.S. draws down in Afghanistan and ramps up all alternative supply routes from the north, Pakistan becomes less important. As Al-Qaeda dwindles, Osama bin Laden's already gone. In many ways, the center of focus also has begun to shift to other places such as Yemen. Again, Pakistan becomes less important on that front. And if you watched the Republican debate last night,
I didn't.
In general, amount of hostility, the amount of negativity surrounding Pakistan is really quite high. So I think what you're going to see is that the end of this kind of narrative, which is of grand engagement, right? You could sort of you could see it defined by either Kerry Lugar or by the 2004 decision to give Pakistan major non-NATO ally status. The idea that you can sort of have this massive turnaround in the relationship, I think, is looking increasingly unrealistic. And what you're going to see is a relationship that's much more limited, transactional, and realistic.
But what does it? I mean, in practical terms, do you see Sharif Rahman being able to revive a sort of relationship where there is transfer of funds from in one direction and transfer of cooperation in the other?
I think there's going to be cooperation. Pakistan is an important country. There's no way, and I don't think any sensible person would even suggest a complete end to cooperation. Too early to judge how successful Sharif Rahman will be, but I'll just sort of, offer one caveat, which is that Hussain Haqqani was a remarkably successful ambassador.
Right.
And these are very, very big shoes for anyone to fill. And I think in many ways, ironically, the military and the ISI are also going to suffer from the fact that they won't have someone of Hussain Haqqani's obvious gifts batting for Pakistan in Washington.
Right. I've always said that Hussain Haqqani is a good batsman playing for the wrong team. I have great disagreements with some of his positions which he has taken, but I mean, as a diplomat, as a professional diplomat, I think we have to see this, him as a master of his trade.
Oh yeah, I mean he's clearly an extremely effective person. One doesn't have to agree with him all the time to sort of just judge the fact that whether it's in terms of his grasp of policy detail or his ability to put across Pakistan's views in the world's leading newspaper op-ed pages or on talk shows, or the fact that this person who is widely respected by his foes, and that's quite a remarkable achievement. So I mean, I think he's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for Pakistan to find a replacement who punches at his weight level.
Thanks, Sadanand. On that note, we'll end. We've reached the nice 9-minute mark, and we hope to see you again on INI9 soon and frequently.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sadanand.